Greetings, Mindcrafters, and welcome to another interesting, hopefully, discussion on Minecraft discussion on all things well-being. My name is Kimberly Quinn, and I'm here in my very chilly living room. You know, we heat with wood, which, as I mentioned in the last video, like it's the best when somebody's home. Like that's the whole key right there, because it warms you right to your bone marrow, as long as there's somebody keeping up with it. And I went to have lunch with a very dear friend. And came back, and it's just a little chilly in here, so I'm going to get that going in a second. But I had something on my mind to chat with you about. I want to do that first, since it's like fresh in the cabeza right here. So it's about, especially in the holiday season, but in general, I mean, just in general, you know, to let other people be right, like even if they're not, like who cares? And so it really comes down to, I mean, first of all, think about why we enjoy being right so much, right? It's such a rush. It's really an ego rush is what it is, right? When we, you know, come back at somebody with a comment, and we just read the latest article, and they're the article that they read 5.5 minutes, you know, before we did. Now we have the next new news, and or we're critical and we're judging, which says all about us and not about them anyway. It's this need to elevate. So it's important, even if it's subtle. It can be really subtle sometimes. It can even be like it can be a friendly conversation. It's not like somebody came out of, you know, the cracks in the walls and started, you know, jumping all over somebody. It can be that, but it can be really subtle. And it's important to realize that when we're doing that, what we're really doing is trying to elevate ourselves, even if it's this much, even if it's the subtlest of comments. And so really, it comes down to the two questions, right? Do I want and need to be right? Or do I want inner peace? And this can be hard sometimes, because in that moment, especially after a couple of belts of wine, you know, during the holidays, if it's during the holidays, or a couple of belts of wine when it's not the holidays, as they say, loose lips sink ships, right? We can really have just this huge need to be right. And what it does when we correct somebody, especially if it's in front of other people, and again, even if it's subtle, it has them on the defensive. Even if everybody's playing by the rules and it seems all nicey-nicey, it still has somebody on the defensive and with their guard up a little bit. I mean, think about it when it's the other way around, and somebody corrects us, you know, either just us or in front of other people. It feels like we're less than in some way, even if it's mild, like we're saying, because if they have a need to correct us, then I must be wrong. See? And it just doesn't feel good, and the whole thing can be avoided by just letting them have the glory. If they're wrong, like who cares? And I know, and I'm an educator, obviously. I'm a professor at Champlain, which you know I love. And I also have the very complimentary, wonderful well-being role, which involves some educating, like in workshops and YouTubes, and when participants come to webinars and things like that. So it's my job to educate my kids as a parent, my job to educate my students as a professor, and my job to I'm going to say be a part of educating, because the facilitating workshops and webinars and things are all seasoned adults. So really kind of, it's more conversational. But that's it. It's not my job to educate, you know, my adult family members, or even well, actually they're all adults now, I'd say. Because even my nieces and nephews, that's not my job either. That's my brothers-in-law's job. And they're all young adults anyway. Or it's not my job to educate people out in the world, especially if they don't ask. It's one thing if they ask. And so this can be really hard when it's something that it's your thing. Like, let's say for me it's positive psychology. Let's say somebody's talking about the limbic system, and they're talking about, oh, there's the amygdala, and then there's only one amygdala, and like I know there's two. It's a medically established fact, or I should say a physiologically established fact. You could actually carve through someone's skull with kindness and anesthesia and remove the two almond-shaped amygdala, the plural is AE, out of their brain. So it might be very tempting if somebody's trying to convince the room that there's one amygdala when I know better, right? Yet it isn't my job, and it feels so much better, which has actually happened. Everybody's had that happen with whatever your field is, right? Somebody says something is blatantly not right, whether it's about skiing or whatever, and you just know that the truth is just not what they're saying. It can be really challenging, because we feel that Shenpa surge, and we talked about, I think that's Sanskrit, Anyway, it's that word for that surge, like that volcanic eruption where somebody says something incorrect or just that, or that whatever just causes us to want to react, right? We can feel it. It's like a thermometer, you know. It just heat, like with the heat outside in the summer, it just goes up, 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 up. It's like it starts in our toes, and you can just feel the red just right up. And it can be very difficult not to bite the Shenpa hook. Really difficult, especially if you're sure you're right. This also comes up and happens a lot with politics. That's probably one of the most common examples of when that happens, and people are drinking and everything, and it can just get really wildly out of hand because you have those people, lots and lots and lots of those people who really truly believe that their opinion is the truth for all people. And that's a tough one because obviously their opinion is only their opinion. Though there are some people so locked in their heads that they really truly believe that this is like etched in granite all over the world and that this is the truth for everybody. And it can be tough to not, it can be really tough to disengage from a battle of the egos, which is exactly what that is. And that's exhausting, absolutely mentally exhausting, emotionally exhausting. And we can avoid the whole thing by realizing that's all it is the egos need to be right. The authentic self, it feels whole and complete. She, he, they don't care. They don't care at all. Now, disclaimer, it's different if somebody's being overtly hateful, like they're saying something racist or homophobic or anti-Semitic or anti-anybody. Then the gloves are off and you got to right that wrong because that's not the same thing. But we're saying most of the time, when people get so crazed over with politics and cutting people off for this and that and that and this and this and that, it's all really battles of the ego. If we can realize that and realize that the ego is the land of falsity, just needing to have that fix. It's so much better to remember, realize that, a week from now this isn't going to matter, a month from now this is certainly not going to matter, a year from now it's definitely not going to matter. And if it's something political, there'll eventually be another run of that anyway. And it just doesn't matter. It's all just noise. My dean loves to, she's very good at that actually. Whenever I'm having a hard time focusing on something, like an issue with whatever, people have issues all the time, right? And she'll say, clear the noise. All that is noise. It's just noise. And if we can realize that it's just egos, like with a sword, like on guard, kind of a fight to the death situation, metaphorically speaking, with the one who, is right winning, obviously, slaying the other one, that how ridiculous that is. And when we can, even as much as it kills us, choose kind over being right, it's amazing. You will probably see good results right in that conversation in the rest of the evening. Because when we, sort of drop that rope and just disengage from it, it has to be authentic because people can catch on to being patronized and stuff. Even 5-year-olds can pick that up. They don't have the word for it probably, but it's still a talking down to. It's still condescending. Genuinely, authentically let go. The family member or friend or whomever will become less defensive. When people are less defensive, right, the guard comes down, and they're not needing to do the battle of the egos either, which is a beautiful thing. So when the defenses come down, all that energy is left to go in a good direction, and people will be more loving, more kind, hopefully more open-minded, and the whole evening will just be more peaceful, inner peace. So I know it's somewhat cliche to say, choose being kind over right, which we can do most of the time. Remember, the exceptions are when somebody's, saying something that's coming from a very dark place, hateful stuff. Other than that, it's really just noise. It's just noise. And if we can realize that, it's so much easier to just smile, look somebody in the eye, remember authentically, say a little mantra to ourselves, it's just an ego discussion, doesn't matter, and let it go. And then you have a far, far more enjoyable day, especially during the holidays. Excellent. So let other people be right, let them have the glory, and who cares? This is Kimberly Quinn signing off from the beautiful northern Vermont. Have a mindful day.